In 2010, this line was here. Today, it's here. Nobody told you what this line actually measures. Most people assume it's the economy or the stock market doing what markets do. It's neither. By the end of this video, you will understand something about every dollar you've ever put into a 401k that nobody explained to you before. This is the policy a Federal Reserve chairman admitted to in his own words, in a newspaper, in public, and almost no one read it. November 4th, 2010, the Federal Reserve had a problem. The economy was crawling out of the worst crash since the Depression, and it was crawling too slowly. So the Fed chairman did something unusual. He wrote an op-ed. Not a policy paper, not a speech to economists, a newspaper column for everyone to read. Ben Bernanke explained the plan in plain English. The Fed would buy government bonds, hundreds of billions of dollars of them. That would push other prices up too. Stocks, homes, assets. And here's the part almost nobody quotes. He said that would make people feel wealthier. And feeling wealthier was supposed to make people spend more. That's not a theory. That's in the filing. This wasn't a side effect anyone apologized for later. It was the stated mechanism. The Fed call it the wealth effect. Chapter 1 is the confession. Chapter 2 is what actually happened when they pulled the lever. If a central bank can choose whose wealth to grow first, who else could it have chosen? Here's what the lever actually did. Since 2000, the S&P 500 has returned 632%. The broader economy, the one everyone actually works inside, grew about 200%. That gap is not an accident of capitalism working normally. Before 1980, a rising stock market and rising wages moved together. After 1980, they stopped. Here's the number that proves it. Before 1980, every 1-point rise in the S&P added about 3 cents to the average real wage. After 1980, 1/10 of 1 cent. The market kept its promise. The paycheck didn't. So who actually owns the thing that grew 600%? Today, the wealthiest 10% of American households hold 87% of all household wealth in this country. The bottom half of America, by number of people, that's over 100 million households, owns about 1% of the stock market. And that's not a footnote. Chapter 3 shows you exactly where that 1% came from. Every previous era of cheap money in American history ended the same way for the people who didn't own assets. Why would this one be different? Let's go back to that op-ed, because there's a second sentence in it, one that matters even more than the first. Bernanke didn't just say stock prices would rise. He named housing too. Higher home values meant homeowners could borrow more, spend more, feel richer too. Here's what a home actually costs relative to a paycheck now. In 1985, a median home cost 3.5 times the median income. Today, 5 times. Between 2019 and 2024 alone, home prices rose 48%. Incomes rose 22%. Prices grew at more than double the pace of paychecks. Double the pace. Same 5 years. Read that sentence one more time. This is what the wealth effect looks like from the other side of the ladder. Not a feeling of being richer. A home that costs twice as many years of work to reach. The policy worked exactly as designed. The only open question is who it was designed for. The Fed calls this a side effect of stimulus. But a side effect that always flows the same direction starts to look like the point. Let's make this personal. Say you had $10,000 sitting in the S&P 500 back in 2010. Today, that $10,000 is worth well over $70,000. You didn't work for that money. It worked for itself. Now say you had $0 to invest because you were paying rent or a student loan or just getting by. Today, That $0 is still zero. Worked just as hard, ended up exactly where it started. The median American household that holds stock directly, outside a retirement account, holds about $15,000 of it. Most households hold far less than that, or none at all. That's not a spending choice. That's an entry price. If wealth in this system compounds fastest for people who already have some, how much of your future was decided before you had a say in it? This is why your rent went up faster than your raise did. This is why a house your parents bought on one income now takes two. Not because you spent badly, because the ladder moved. That number is worth pausing on. You didn't lose a competition. You were playing a different game than the one being described to you on the news. Remember that line from the beginning of this video? Here it is again. It was never the economy. It was never just the market. It was the gap between people who own something and people who don't. The gap. That's the line the Fed says its job is to keep the economy stable. Whether stability was ever supposed to feel this uneven is not an economic question. Systems explained honestly. Subscribe if that matters.